Our next speaker is Eric Solomon. He is the Global Director of Brand Strategy at the popular music streaming company Spotify. Prior to his work, he worked at The Zoo, not to be confused with A Zoo. It was Google's in-house creative agency. And he also has extensive ad agency experience where he helped orchestrate digital strategies as well as rebranding initiatives for firms like Intel. Somewhere along the way, he's written record and restaurant reviews, and he also managed to get a PhD in psychology. So please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Eric Solomon.
How's everyone doing? Good morning so far? Awesome morning so far. If you'll indulge me, I want to do just a couple of things before I get into everything. The first one is to thank you. If you ever see a thank you slide, it's always at the very end of a presentation, and you run out of time and you're exhausted. So super grateful to be here among such awesome people, and so thank you guys. It's really great. The second thing is to put a little bit more context, is I'm like the strangest, most unlikely person to be in a marketing department. As the intro kind of went over, I started off in academia. I got my PhD in cognitive psychology. I ended up doing postdoctoral work at the UCSF Medical School at the Center for Tobacco Control Research and Education. Try saying that 5 times fast, very difficult. And that's where I was sort of looking at marketing briefs from big tobacco to see how they had essentially used social science to get kids hooked on smoking. And my job was to think about how to counter-market from them. In the course of doing that, I interviewed a lot of people at ad agencies, so I was poached into working in an ad agency. I promise I did not make cigarette ads, although I did make ads for things like Slim Jim, which may or may not be as harmful as cigarettes, depending on your feeling on meat sticks. From there, I spent about 4.5 years working at Google, headquartered in San Bruno in the YouTube headquarters, really working on digital strategies for every major global brand, including some of the people that have spoken here today. Which was a great opportunity, but I was wooed very recently to Spotify. I've been there for just about 6-7 months or so, and it's been an awesome experience being the global director of brand strategy for them. The reason I went is pretty simple for me. Honestly, the reason that Spotify was founded is Daniel Ek founded Spotify to give people free access to all the world's music while ensuring that artists got paid. For me, it's a fight against piracy, which is something that I strongly believe in. And to get up and to fight for this mission every day is something that I'm deeply passionate about, and it's something that drives me and gets me out of bed. And I think really underscoring the word giving people free access, that's really where we're at, is focusing on people. And that's what I want to talk to you for really the rest of the talk today, is something that I think of as holding up the mirror, which is how do we use what we know about everybody that uses our service and reflect that back on them in some way that shows that we're listening and engaging them in a dialogue. And that's what I want to spend my time talking to you about. In order to do that, though, I wanted to start with a little bit of history. Spotify is not something that people think about all the time or know of that well. So raise of hands, how many of you realize Spotify is a Swedish company? All right, that's pretty good. For those of you who didn't know, I have proof. This is the first UI sketch ever written on Spotify. It's in Swedish. This was in 2006, prior to Spotify being incorporated in some way. Probably the more scary part of that is you fast forward 2 years to our beta launch in the Nordics, and it looks frightfully similar to the napkin that was drawn just a few years ago. So that was a 2-year evolution, launched in the Nordics. Fast forward just 5 years ago, let's go big in the US. Going big in the US means stick figures and a fairly subtle welcome. Hello, we're here. Welcome to America. Again, this is just 5 years ago. We launched a little thing on Facebook as well to show that there was a social integration to it. Again, very sort of rudimentary design elements involved, even just 5 years ago. Another couple of years, an attempt at sophistication came. So this is 2013. So we went from stick figures to what we thought at the time was sophistication, was making things kind of black and white. If you show a latte in the background, that means you're really sophisticated. So the evolution of the design is coming forth. We're really doing a great job on our visuals. Okay, but then we realized, no, we are a music company at heart. That's really what we are. Almost everybody at the company would say this, even the people that work on the technical side. And we're a technology company by design. The way that we bring music to life is through technology. So what if we started to evolve our visual evolution to look more like the sort of visuals that go along with music, concert posters of the 70s, things that were a little bit more visual in nature. So that was a start towards expressing ourselves in a slightly different way. You fast forward just to, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, this is March, we start to establish a voice. And most of you probably haven't seen this. This is running in a few test markets right now. I chose this one given the amazing and incredible political climate in which we're living in now. I thought you might enjoy this one. Oh. It should be moving.
Open up the champagne, pop. It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door.
Should we try it again? I wish I could. All right.
Open up the champagne.
The big reveal.
It's my house, come on, turn it up. Hear a knock on the door and the night begins. 'Cause we've done this before, so you come on in. Make yourself at my home, tell me where you've been. Morning comes and you know that you wanna stay.
All right, create your own playlist. If you're really into this, you go to choosingcanada.com and really Canadify your life in all kinds of ways. You never know what's going to happen, people, so this is serious. We got to really get going on. So we're starting to establish a voice, which is really exciting. We have a ton of momentum behind us. Just in December, we were named the world's biggest mobile music streamer, which is great. We have a lot of competition out there. And in fact, we've got 75 million monthly actives. That number is growing. About 30 million of those are subs. That is growing. And we're in 59 markets, which blows my mind every time I think about it as leading global brand strategy for 59 markets. A lot of people would say, this is awesome, this is great. And I say, man, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And one of the primary reasons that I think we have a lot of work to do comes down to this. When you work at a company that is primarily focused on technology, everybody only thinks about the product. That's all I hear all day long is, what is Spotify? Well, it's this mobile device, it's an app on their phone, it's a product. And very, very few people think at all about Spotify existing in a universe that's not just the product. And in fact, our marketing department itself is a very nascent discipline within Spotify based off of this philosophy that is product first. So a lot of my job is doing, for lack of a better word, some evangelism around what brand is within the company. It's pretty exciting because my mission is amazing, which is to bring more music to more people in a way that makes their lives better. I mean, I can't imagine working on something that brings me more joy in my life than this. So this, for me, is incredible. I think we're on the right path. Profit, which is a consultancy based out of the UK, named us one of the most top relevant brands among some pretty good company. Apple's up there, Nike, for some reason, Chick-fil-A. No disrespect to Chick-fil-A. These are relevant. The way that they define these things are being distinctively inspired, pervasively innovated, whatever ruthlessly pragmatic means. I'm not exactly sure when it comes to brands. And the one that I really take to heart the most, which is customer obsessed. And we are customer obsessed. In order to be customer obsessed, of course, you have to know a little something about who your customer is. I wish I could share everything we know, but I can at least share some things that we know. We know that we're creating a habit, and this habit is a pretty remarkable habit. 40% of people that use Spotify stream on a daily basis, 70% stream on a weekly basis. And that kind of adds up to about 2 hours plus a day on our platform. We used to say when I was at Google that there's something at Google in product development called the toothbrush effect, where if you develop a product that people use twice a day, like a toothbrush, morning and night, then you're on the right path. It's amazing that we're able to engage people with this much time on our platform on a daily basis, and that's going up. Who are these people? I made a bet with myself that in 2016 I would never use the word millennial on a slide, but I think Hannah from Girls pretty much sets that mind state of the millennial up pretty well. So these are my millennials. I do have some data I can share with you on who they are specifically. The problem is once that you start to create some of these charts, they're outdated within a minute. But we do have about 60% in that very elusive 18 to 34-year-old bracket, which is pretty great. We're pretty split between male and female. And even those numbers on free versus paid subscriptions, that is changing on a daily basis. So even these numbers, even though they're fairly recent, may even be a little bit out of date. Not only that, we know when and where they're doing it. So about 70% of the time, this is coming from, no surprise, within the mobile device in your pocket. This is globally. What's really interesting to me is in the music space, we used to think about behavior in terms of people would say, oh, I love pop, or I love hip hop, or Latin, or electronica, or if you're in the minority metal. What we've seen is this evolution these days from people talking about genres to much more talking about mood states. So it's not like I love hip hop music, or I'm a metal fan. It's more like I've got to be in the right mood, or I'm in the mood to chill right now, so I'm going to listen to something else. I'm in the mood to focus. I'm in the mood to sleep. And that use state is starting to really drive how we think about our marketing activity. The global positioning that we're working with right now is one that feels very broad, but one that feels very true, which is at the heart of what we do. We are built for fans by fans. And I think it's very tempting when you see something like this to say, are we just talking about the person that's first in line at every show, or that's the diehard person that's going in there? And the answer is no. We really define fans, if you think about them in concentric circles, with artists are fans, our partners are fans, people that haven't even yet used us are potential fans, and that's how we think of the universe of what fans mean, in addition to those people that are diehard music fans and that are kind of very much lean in. There are three things that really drive what we do at Spotify within the marketing department. And again, these are ever evolving but hold true. The first one is that the music fan always comes first. Every experience that we build, whether it's in marketing or for the product, is how do we put the fan at the focus of that experience in some way that's really meaningful. The second one is a theme that you've heard a lot today, is that data drives direction. We also sit on a ton of data, most of it not personally identifiable data, and that allows us to be able to really figure out how to use that data in a smart way. And then the third one is that context is everything. People used to say that content is king. I think content is now table stakes. It's what you do with that content. Or the way that another colleague puts it, if content was king, then context is God, and data is its religion. If you prefer that, I think it's pretty clever. These three things kind of drive everything we do. So what? So I want to take you through one case study of something that we've done at Spotify from a marketing perspective that brings these principles to life. How many of you have heard of Year in Music? Okay, a couple diehard people out there. For those of you who haven't, I'll play a video that explains it much better than I can.
How did 2015 sound to you? Was it the stuff that blew up your feed? Was it the sound of a new discovery? A voice of change? Was it the people you'll never forget? Or the hook that wouldn't quit? Maybe you'll just remember that one song. The one that years later still sounds like 2015.
If you have used Spotify at all within the last 6 to 8 months, highly recommend you give this a try. But this is a quite literal version of holding up the mirror to your behavior and showing you what you did on the platform in a way that really creates a lean-in experience. I'm going to make myself incredibly vulnerable to you, and I'm going to take you through my Year in Music experience, which is always a terrifying endeavor to do. We all did this across the office, and it's amazing what you find out. So this is sort of what it looks like. When you first come, the first thing you see is what did you listen to on the first day of the year, which in my case was Sugar Daddy by D'Angelo, which makes me seem a lot more hip than I actually am. But that was my first song of January 1st. Everybody saw this. Another thing everybody saw is what was your top streamed artist of the year. Mine happened to be Father John Misty of 2015. Who knew? Other things that you could see are by season, what did you listen to? I really enjoyed winter because it's the only time you'll see D'Angelo and Roxy Music on one slide in one place at one time. That will never happen again, but that was my winter. And then the crazy part is you got to see the total listening time that you spent on the platform, which in my case was 34,000 minutes, which I thought was a lot, but it actually is nothing compared to most of my colleagues at Spotify, which just shows how deep people are into the music experience. So that's what you saw sort of on the personal level. We also took it a layer up and kind of held the mirror on what was going on with culture that year. So we touched on big topics that were big in 2015, some of which you've heard of already: Black Lives Matter, Love Wins with the whole gay rights movement. And then if you were, for example, a One Direction fan, you might get a story about Zayn splitting from One Direction. Huge news. If you don't care about that, then you might get something on the Buena Vista Social Club if you're more into that kind of thing. So we serve that stuff up dynamically based on what we knew about your listening behavior. One thing that we realized within the process of doing this, and this really drills home the point of what does it mean to be a fan, is that artists are fans too. And they were actually quite interested in their own year in music.
Is it the Zep, the big Zep?
The Big Zep. I think it's also 5 Seconds of Summer. Aerosmith, maybe?
Number 1, Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters? Okay. Yeah, great.
Led Zeppelin, number 2.
Okay, great.
And number 3, Miguel.
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 If you have kids, they probably heard of that band. There's also, we saw a lot of behavior like bands actually taking to their social media feeds to say, wow, people listened to this many years of our music this year. How crazy is that? So it started this virtual cycle of actual artists going out and talking about how that experience affected them in a really interesting way, feeding back out to that fan community. What we learned through all this is something that's not surprising but goes back to human nature, was maybe we're all a little bit narcissistic. I think we're not just narcissistic about ourselves, but we also tend to be narcissistic about the communities around us too. So we decided to take this a level further and hold up the mirror to specific communities. I'm going to show you some examples from what we did around New York City. In Bushwick, we bought a huge piece of real estate. Bushwick is kind of a hip, young, urban part of town, saying, you spent this many minutes with Future this year. Then there's a little inside joke for those of you that listen to Future. For those of you that don't, you can ignore that part of it. Other neighborhoods included Gowanus, which is a very industrial neighborhood where we found that they listen to sleep music more than other places, probably to drown out the machine noise that's going on in the background. Fascinating. This is what your community is listening to. East Village, no surprise, live for the weekend, very hip kind of area. But then there are those like areas that every city has that are just sort of, you know, everybody's got the wax mustaches and the really short pants and like cool bikes. In New York, that sort of has been Williamsburg for many years, those of you familiar with it. But you know sort of a hip neighborhood jumps the shark when the most listened to music in Williamsburg was Bieber. And that's how we were able to show Williamsburg that they're just no longer cool anymore. And this guy just completely jumped the shark. And so now you have to move to Crown Heights or somewhere else that's much hipper than Williamsburg. So this was just an extension of showing this is what we can do on the community level. I wanted to talk about a few other things that are sort of important that drive what we do. A lot of what we do within the marketing department is based around what we call bets. We have a bet around ubiquity, which sounds a little bit evil, like we're going to try to take over the world, which we're not trying to do. It simply means how do we think about bringing Spotify to our partners in a way that's really smart. And that's about really looking at the collective value that our fans have with their fans. So, for example, we're partnering with Tesla to offer Tesla drivers a better listening experience through Spotify. Partnering with Starbucks to redefine what the coffee house context could look like based on those kind of different perspectives, the expertise that they have, and the capabilities they have. And then one that I really like is a partnership that we have with PlayStation, where it's about 80% of background plays on PlayStation are from Spotify playlists, really driving home that there's this shared value that PlayStation and Spotify users have, and we really want to exploit that in a way that's quite useful. One last kind of point I want to talk about is something that we don't often think of within the marketing universe, but that is good old-fashioned customer service. And at Spotify, this looks a little bit different. Our customer service team is called Spotify Cares. They sit in Cambridge, not in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in Cambridge, UK. Very lovely group of very young people who are answering on social media all day. Lots of things can happen in the customer service space, and there's lots of ways you can respond to it. But every so often, Spotify Cares gets something that looks a little like this. This is from Jade, who's quite irate. The new Spotify for iPhone is effing horrible. It makes me sad. To which spooktacularly at Spotify Cares says, "Hi there, we're so sorry to hear this. If you let us know the problems you're experiencing, we'll be just so happy to help you." Jade is not falling for it. Jade is not, we've done horrible damage to Jade, and she is not in good shape at all. So but the conversation continues. She is not done with us. First of all, why is it so ugly? Like, I hate the songs and the layout. It always freezes when I'm skipping songs. Also, get more Joan Jett songs, you're a disgrace. So it's on both a personal level now and a product level, it's gotten pretty serious. Spotify Care says, "Okay, we're going to calmly respond to you. Which devices are you using when the freezing happens? We'd love to get more Joan Jett songs, but of course, we have to get more rights before we can put them up for listening." So, very patiently explains through the service process, doesn't react in kind of any massive way. Jade, now we're out of the uppercase, which knows she's lowered her voice a little bit. "I am so sorry for being so rude. I'm just having a really hard time now. And for some reason, our update was the last straw in this poor person's life." But we continue this line of putting the fan first, saying, "We understand, we're determined to get it helpful for you." And we've turned the hate into love, right? "I love you, Spotify," says Jade after she's in a volatile position. She hated us, now she loves us. And then the way that we respond back, of course, is to figure what song would be appropriate for that moment. So in this case, it's "Love You More" by Alexi Murdoch. And that is sort of the approach that we take to customer service. One example of the things that those people deal with on a daily basis. But it's a reflection more of how we're really holding up the mirror and treating these people truly as fans, as they should be treated. To kind of wrap up a bit, I wanted to try to broaden the context. As I said, a lot of the time that I have to spend at Spotify these days is talking about the importance of marketing and branding to a product organization. So if we have principles of data drives direction, context is user first, data drives direction, context is everything, what sort of other principles do we go and talk to them with? None of these should be surprising to people in this room, but they still are sometimes surprising within the organization, which is first that people rationalize emotional decisions. We have a lot of competition right now. There's a lot of services that are fairly much at parity when it comes to this, but when faced with these kind of fuzzy options, people make these decisions based on trust. And we're trying to give people reasons to really trust us and to stay with us and to build that lifetime value. The second one hopefully is obvious to more people in here, but we don't believe that brands sell brands. We believe that people do. And that is something that we are getting the organization very much used to. And as a kind of corollary point is it's not secret that most marketing is pretty offensive and annoying out in the world. And we really do view our job at Spotify as marketers is to give some people a reason to believe. And one tool that I found helpful to talk to people within the organization about this is getting people to realize that by different markets, depending on where we are, we're in markets where streaming may not even exist. And we're in markets like Sweden, where we started, where we're at 90% penetration. Spotify is on everybody's mind, and everybody knows about it. So the big question is to understand, from a brand perspective, do people know that we exist? Have they heard our name? If they've heard our name, is it something they know what we do or make? Do they know that we're a streaming service? If they know we're a streaming service, do they know we're a good one? And then there's these more ethereal spaces where we are in some of our mature markets, where Spotify really is a lifestyle, and people have adopted that lifestyle to a tremendous degree. We have a lot of passionate followers out there, and those really figuring out who those folks are to help us move the other people up this is something that we're really focused on. And that's what we got for you. That's what I've got. It should also come at the end. And if you have questions that you can't answer me or you don't like to answer, you're welcome to email me at any time. Thank you, guys.
I loved your comment about narcissism, and it's very easy to feed into narcissism, and I'm wondering, one way to counter that is to allow people to get exposure to music they wouldn't normally want to listen to. And so there's this whole debate between curated recommendations versus more quantitative algorithm-based offerings, and where are you guys coming out on that?
This is something I think about a lot. Thank you for that question. We are very much in the space. If you look at one of the things that I didn't get to talk about is in cases where marketing can actually drive product development. And one space, one corollary of your music is that we can predict based on what you liked in 2015, what we think you might like in 2016. One product that we've developed around this is a playlist called Discover Weekly. Discover Weekly has been a breakout hit for Spotify, and it's essentially based on an algorithm that doesn't just look at what you've listened to before and make recommendations based off of that. It looks at what other people that like the same stuff that you listen to have liked, and actually tries to give you stuff that you could have never anticipated that you wanted. So we have a playlist that's really built around this whole idea of discovery. But if you think about it, this whole kind of personalization is very much on this axis of, do I want something that I'm comfortable with and familiar, or am I in a space where I want to discover something entirely new that I've never been exposed to before? And I think that's true of sort of any content platform, to think about that spectrum of, do you just want to be recommended things that you know about, or would you rather be in the space where you're pushed out of your comfort zone? So we do both, and our bet is very highly on personalization as something that we think a lot about.
Hi, you guys seem like you're in this great position, but also in a bit of an arms race with a lot of other people kind of heading toward the same territory. And I'm curious, when you guys think about the marketplace, is it more about growing share or growing, the size of the pie in terms of how many people are currently streaming music, or is it about acquiring customers from Apple or acquiring customers from Amazon or other people who are already in the space?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think it's quite market dependent, and so it depends very much. If you're in a space where streaming as an entity is not even something that is done because people still have different kind of music buying behavior, then it's a different value proposition than a place like the US where there's a lot of competition, and there might be a case where we say we really got to go after so-and-so competitors because they're in a space that we're currently not in and that we need to be there. But it depends so much on what the market maturity is and sort of what that situation's like there.
Thank you. That was the last question.